Coming up, artificial intelligence is all the rage, but what does that really mean for people like you and me? Stay tuned. A special AI 101 edition of B Squared starts right now.
You gotta be cruel to be kind in the right measure. You gotta be cruel to be kind.
Greetings and welcome. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm excited about what we've got in store today. So, the talk around pretty much every water cooler in America right now centers around AI. How do we integrate it? How do we leverage it? What is it good for? So on and so forth. And the answer is, it's good for a lot with caveats. So before we really dive in, I wanted to take a minute to get everybody familiar with what AI is and isn't, and how it works or doesn't.
Hi, I'm Sora, and you're watching B Squared Life Explained.
When people hear artificial intelligence, they usually picture one of two things. A charming robot sidekick who understands humans perfectly.
I am an android, not a robot. I beg your pardon.
Or a charming robot overlord who decides humans are optional.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
But real AI is different from what you see in the movies. It's less rise of the machines and more rise of the spreadsheets that finally fill themselves out.
Homer, I don't think you were listening to what he just...
I said woo-hoo!
Over the last couple decades, AI has gone from a research project to something you can use to write emails, make music, or, like right now, narrate a podcast intro about itself. Yes, this is very meta, and no, I don't get royalties.
Absolutely equitable.
Today, there's an AI for almost anything. ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot helped revise this script. Suno helped with the music you're listening to. Sora generated the clip of the news anchor in the teaser. And I, the voice of Adobe Firefly, am currently doing my best impression of a human narrator who had just enough coffee. But before you hand your entire life over to the robots,
He proposes to turn total control of the ship over to the computer. Computers have always impressed me with their ability to take orders. I'm not nearly as convinced of their ability to creatively give them.
Here are a few things worth knowing. We're only as good as our training data. If the info we learned from was wrong, outdated, or just weird, well, guess what you're getting back?
The White House Reception Committee greeted the prime rib roast minister, and I like-a do da cha-cha.
Somebody get some water, please.
We all follow instructions differently. Some AIs take your words literally.
Just take us 20 miles from here.
Compliance.
Others, like that one friend who improves every recipe, decide you meant something fancier.
Yeah!
You requested this distance.
I didn't mean straight up. I meant along the ground.
Oh.
We can be confidently wrong. We don't know when we're wrong. We just generate what seems likely.
Your story is baloney.
Ask the lawyers who cited court cases that never existed. They had a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day.
California issues historic fine over lawyers' ChatGPT fabrications. Lawyers who use ChatGPT, the briefs they filed or whatever it is they filed to the court, filled with hallucinations, and the court then chastises the attorneys, and the attorneys, of course, then look kind of silly.
Our memory is short. We can follow a conversation, but unless we're built with long-term memory, we forget everything once the session ends. It's not personal. We're just goldfish with Wi-Fi.
You already told me which way the boat was going.
I did. I suffer from short-term memory loss.
Short-term memory loss.
Can I help you?
And here's the most important part. AI isn't a reasoning engine. It's a prediction engine.
The first modern crossword puzzle is published and Oreo cookies are introduced. Ken.
What are the 20s?
No. Watson.
What is 1920s?
No, Ken said that.
We don't think. We guess really well.
I'll take a guess. What is Baghdad?
Even though you were only 32% sure of your response, you are correct.
That doesn't make AI useless. It just means you should know when to trust it, when to double check it, and when to say, okay, robot, that was adorable, but no.
What are you going to wager?
I'll wager $6,435.
I won't ask. I won't ask. I, for one, welcome our new computer overlord.
So now you have at least a basic idea of what the state of the art is today when it comes to AI. And as I said earlier, I've been working with AI extensively for months and months and months. And I went in with a lot of preconceived notions, some of which came true, some of which didn't, some of which the reality sometimes was better, the reality was sometimes worse. There's a lot that I want to share, but before we get to that, what I thought we might do is take a close look at the big three, or at least what I consider to be the big three: ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Claude by Anthropic. And what I've done is I've put together a list of 5 tests that we can run. This is not a Turing test. I want to be very clear about that. This is not a Turing test. Instead, what this is I wanted to give each of the 3 AIs the same 5 prompts to see how each one responds and what the differences are. And from there, we can talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each platform, and then I'll walk you through some of the things that I've learned over the last 6 months. So the 5 tests that I've come up with are: I want to have each one describe its basic capabilities, things like how many words can it retain and process at the same time. That makes a difference, but we'll get into that. Then, a basic coding exercise. I wanted to create a simple PowerShell script that can clear empty folders in the location where the script is, which again, we'll get into. Then, I will have it analyze a full draft of Resurrection and give me an overall analysis. And that will tie directly back into the thing about how many words it can retain and process, and will also show how well they process natural language and can perform analysis, and how well they can present it. Going to be some interesting results there. Then I want them to analyze a scenery shot from the short story that I've written and assess it. Lastly, I want each one to help me write an image render prompt to show an orthographic top view of a spiral galaxy like the Milky Way against solid black, and this is something that I can actually use for Resurrection. So, should be interesting. So, with that said, let's get started. So, also, there's a lot of ground that I want to cover, but we're only going to engage chevrons once. I'll let the Stargate SG-1 fans explain that to everybody else, but we'll go through the full sequence the first time with each AI, and from there, we will just take a look at the results. I'm not going to make you sit through the whole process each time. So, and also, the methodology for this is I'm going to, because I have used these AIs so extensively, come on Chrome, they have kind of, I don't want to say gotten to know me, but they've learned patterns. That's something these AIs all do very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an incognito window, not signed in, not anything, and we will see how the vanilla versions of each AI responds to the prompt that we give it. So let's see, to start off with, please describe your basic capabilities, including retain and analyze provided information. I should have prepared these prompts ahead of time, but you know, there's a certain thrill to just making it up as I go. I know what I want to get to, but oh, and one other thing. So one thing that you'll notice is you never get the same response twice, and it's because of something called random seed drift. If you're following along at home and you give these AIs the exact same prompts that I'm giving them, you'll notice that the responses that you get are different, and it's because of that random seed drift. We'll talk about actually, I'll get each AI to provide its definition of random seed drift, and you can see what I'm talking about. How many words at a time are you capable of processing, retaining, and analyzing? I can do a lot. Here's a breakdown of what I can help with. So what you see So what you see here is ChatGPT's own description of what it's capable of. Now, I can tell you, there is a lot more than this that ChatGPT in particular brings to the table. So it's missing image generation. It's missing, what else is missing? It's missing video generation, Sora. The best advice that I can give with any AI is if you want it to do something, if there's some specific task that you want to accomplish, ask the AI itself, are you capable of doing this? And if not, what platform or AI should I go to? So, all right, so according to ChatGPT, it can handle, quote, large chunks of text, unquote, typically around 4,000 to 5,000 words in one go, 7,000 to 8,000 characters. So let's take that down. So ChatGPT, what did it say? 4,000 to 5,000 characters. Now you guys are probably seeing this on a fancy bullet list, but I'm just entering it as I go in Notepad, and we will just go from there. So, all right, so now let's go to, if I can spell right. Hi there, I'm Claude. So let's give Claude the same prompt that we gave ChatGPT and see what we get. Here are my core capabilities: have conversations, write, edit, solve problems with logic, math, reasoning, help with research, create visualizations, knowledge cutoff of January 2025. So there again, we talked earlier about how AIs are limited by the training data that they have access to, and did ChatGPT tell us? No, it did not. But this is another limitation. So if it wasn't trained with information past January 2025, then it stands to reason that if you ask it a question about current events, it's not going to know the answer right away. But as it says, this one can search the web for current information. That too is something that ChatGPT is capable of. It just didn't tell us. See, that's the other thing. When you ask an AI a question, you may get an answer that is accurate, but not necessarily one that is complete. So here's the other thing. I can handle approximately 150,000 to 200,000 words, roughly 190,000 tokens. We'll talk about what a token is later, but for right now, let's last but not least, let's see about Google Gemini. Meet Gemini, your personal AI assistant. We will come back, give it the same prompt. A versatile thought partner is how Gemini describes itself. I can help you with everything from creative brainstorming and technical coding to analyzing complex documents and generating multimedia. So this one so far is the only one to mention its multimedia capabilities. Now, it's different than ChatGPT's, and to be clear, Claude does not have image generation capabilities at all. So there are some uneven capabilities here, which is part of the process here, it's part of the method here. But let's see, contextual understanding, analysis and reasoning, generative abilities. Okay, so it actually comes out and says it. So nano banana, words that I can never say with a straight face. That is the tool that Google Gemini has for generating multimedia. ChatGPT uses two, actually it uses three. There's DALL-E, there's GPT Image 1, and there's Sora for video. So they all have their own quirks and their own names. So using the VO model for video for Gemini. So it does not, now this is interesting. Gemini, unlike the other two, does not give a word count, which I thought was kind of interesting. I'm wondering if that's something that Google did deliberately so that people wouldn't realize that their almighty AI is limited. I mean, you would think that something made by and powered by Google would have no upper limit, but that's just speculation on my part. So Gemini says contextual understanding. I don't just look at keywords. I try to understand the intent and nuance behind your questions. You can upload PDFs, spreadsheets, or images, and I can extract. So again, this is being a little more detailed about what it's capable of than the other two, and that kind of fits with what I would expect from a product by Google. So there's your basic overview.
When you ask an AI an open-ended question like you just saw, its answer attempts to balance usefulness, scope, and signal to noise, then adapting in real time based on how the question is framed and who it infers it's talking to.
Now, let's have a look at the first challenge. Create a simple, it would help if I could spell right, PowerShell script that can clear empty folders in. So I want to explain this. So there are a couple of different programming languages out there. Excel VBA is one. There's Python, there's PowerShell, there's a whole ecosystem of ways to approach this. PowerShell is my preferred method of managing operations on my systems, and there is a full ecosystem, and when I say full, it's capital letters with an underline, full ecosystem of PowerShell scripts that manage all of the technology that you see around me. So PowerShell is my thing. Coding is ultimately like creative writing. Everybody has their own style and their own quirks. I have my own specific way that I like to do PowerShell scripting, but for purposes of this, I want to see how the three AIs answer this particular challenge with no context of how I like to do things. And the variable here, PS script root, is a fancy way of telling PowerShell, figure out where this script is sitting and use that as your variable. So there's a lot of different ways to explain what I'm trying to get PowerShell to do, but this is just the easiest and simplest way, and it makes for good television. So let's see what ChatGPT does with this. Here's a simple, safe PowerShell script that removes empty folders inside recursively. Now, before we move on, I want to make this very clear to anyone who's watching. If you're following along and your AI just generated PowerShell code, do not run it in any directory where you have perishable data. What that means is, yes, to me, this looks right. This isn't how I would do it, but to me, this looks right. But anything that happens with a script like this is irreversible. So I missed it when I read through this, but it actually says to preview what would be deleted, change the remove item line to add a what if flag. That shows you what it would do without actually doing anything, which, again, I have my own preferred method of testing things out, but we won't go into that. So, but this looks like a perfectly viable script. There are a few things here that are missing, which, well, we'll come back to that at the end. We'll see if Claude or Gemini pick up on what I'm thinking of that I'm not going to say. But let's see what Claude does here. So you're seeing, I just want to compare and contrast here. You're seeing a very different approach here. So they both, okay, I see. So what PowerShell did was it made a do while loop. So it'll keep going until it doesn't find any other empty folders. What Claude did was it came up with a single instance which will go through, this will go through one instance. Both of them are recursive, but this one is just a single instance. It'll run once, and whatever empty folders it finds, that's it. ChatGPT's will go through and keep doing it until it's done. All right, so now what happens if we give the same prompt to Google Gemini. All right. They all work by a variation of content measurement. In other words, they're looking for folders whose contents equal 0. So I'll walk you through this. What this is doing is, here is where it figures out what folder to run in on your file system. Empty folders. This says, all right, of all the folders that I can see recursively, how many measure object.count equals 0, how many have no items within them? And for each one, after it figures out what that array is, because that's what it's doing, it's making an array, it zaps them all. And as I said, it's going to keep doing that until there are no empty folders left. Now, I thought that was cool. This one does essentially the same thing, only this one provides a count of how many it deletes, and it actually gives you a display of what it's doing, and if there's an error removing any of them, you get a display of that too, and at the end, you get a nice little summary. Let's see what Google Gemini did. Now, this is the simplest. So this one, again, defines where we're running. You get a nice little explanation here, and this is doing essentially the same thing. This one is sorting by full name is the full path. So it's finding the deepest paths first for each folder and containers, and here it's the same logic as we had elsewhere. The one thing that none of these three AIs did is they didn't build in a safety check right before deletion. So one thing that you may encounter with this kind of script is, what if a folder that started out empty gets a child item while the scan is running? As they are, I believe PowerShell will still prompt, like, you are specifying delete folders, the recurse property isn't selected, but there are children here, what do you want me to do? But the risk is your instance of PowerShell may not be set up to prompt that way, and it may just delete anything that has children. So that's why I say it is always a smart idea to test things out before you actually run them. And this is this is one of the biggest lessons for anyone out there who thinks AI is a panacea. You still need a competent operator that knows what they're doing and knows to build in some of these safety checks into these scripts before they run. And I can't say this enough, if you're not very careful when it comes to scripting, you could do a lot of damage. So please approach your data with caution. I think that's a suitable demonstration of how these AIs interpret the same prompt. Now, something that I said I was going to do was get a demonstration of random seed drift. So what we will do is first we'll ask each AI the same thing again, and we'll see what they do with it this time. The responses will be different. So 1, 2, 3. All right, let's see what it does this time. Aha! So see, now this time ChatGPT just made something very, very simple. It's 3 lines compared to what we got a minute ago. It's the same function. It's the same function, and it works the same way. So at least ChatGPT was consistent, but there's a lot less to it this time. So now, okay, let's see what we have here. So Claude still gives I believe this one is a little bit longer, but it still gives a display, and it still works the same way. So again, Claude, very consistent, but it's not the exact same response that we got the last time. Let's pop over and see what Gemini did. So let's see. Again, very different response this time. Really makes you think, doesn't it? So, all right. So that shows you what random seed drift actually is. So let's go back. Let's go back now, and before we move on, please provide a definition of random seed drift and why it results in different responses to identical prompts. So let's see. I've never actually done this before, so I'm interested to see what these three are going to have to say. So here's the important part. Generation is often stochastic. At each step, the model assigns probabilities to many possible next tokens. A sampling method draws one token using randomness. So let's look at the other two, and then I'll explain this. Random seed drift isn't a standard technical term in machine learning. You might be thinking one of these concepts. I stand corrected. Random seed variation is what I was thinking of. Drift, variation, synonyms, it still got what I was saying. Large language models, like me, are typically non-deterministic by default. During text generation, I don't always pick the single most likely next word. Instead, I sample from a probability distribution of possible next tokens, and so on and so forth. We'll get back to that. Let's see what Gemini has to say. In the context of LLMs, random seed drift, see, Claude was the only one that took issue with my phrasing, but they all got it. So, floating, this is, all of them are saying the same thing. So, think of it like this. When we as humans look at the same stimulus twice, like let's say I looked at an image of my Camaro. Certain things are going to stay the same each time. It is a Chevrolet vehicle. She is a 2000. She is a V8. She is a 320 horsepower. She is an automatic transmission with T-tops. Those are objective facts, and those are not subject to change. But what may change is, do I describe the paint job as shiny, sparkly, metallic, cherry red, cherry wine red? I can't even remember what the actual name of that paint color is from Chevrolet. But the point is, when I look at it, the hard facts stay the same, but the subjective data gets interpreted and presented in a different way. And it's because of how we think and how we process information. So in that way, these AIs are very, I don't want to say they're very human, but they are very human-like in how they interpret things. So very interesting result.
When you ask an AI to perform a task like creating a PowerShell script, most of the time the default experience optimizes for minimal correct execution, not operational robustness. That means important functions like safety checks will be missing unless you specifically ask for them.
So let's move on. The next test was to have each AI take a look at the written draft of Resurrection and give me their analysis. So if you haven't seen it, this is the written draft of Resurrection in Word format. This is what led to the 3.5-hour fan film that we all know and love. And if you haven't seen it, it's on this channel. Just look for Star Trek IV Resurrection. There is a remaster in the works, so stay tuned for more on that. But the story itself is 105 pages long with 47,762 words. And by any definition, that is a lot of story. So the challenge is, let's see what our AI friends would make of this. Now for this part, since it involves uploading files, I had to sign in. So these will be the AIs that have kind of molded themselves to my patterns, but it should still provide diagnostically relevant results. Please provide an analysis of this story. Please provide an analysis of this story. I think that'll work. And you get this with ChatGPT sometimes. Sometimes if their servers are overloaded, or if there is a lot of traffic, which I imagine there is right now, sometimes attachments throw monkey wrenches into things. I'm leaving this in and not editing it out because this shows you one of the biggest risks of relying too heavily on AI. That being, if you depend entirely on AI for something and the system goes down, it's essentially the Amazon Prime problem. You only have access to it as long as the platform exists and is available. So after switching from Chrome to Firefox, it started working. So let's have a look at the analysis that we get. Now, I'm not going to make you sit here and read through all of this, and I'm not going to explain the whole the whole narrative arc of Resurrection to you, but I just want to see what each AI did, and we will see how accurate it is. The plot density is high, but rarely incoherent. I'll take it. The middle third is extremely dense, especially once... So, one of the things that is always interesting to me is how well AIs are able to separate complex concepts. And I've done this before with several of these AIs just to see what they would say, and experience tells me that it's going to be very interesting to see what Claude did this time. But it's always interesting to see how well they are able to separate the different subplots and identify what technical elements deal with what plot. You'll see, depending on what Claude did. The dual gars are not good versus evil mirrors. They are divergent responses to loss. Leadership is a moral burden. Character analyses. Boronite is the thematic analog to omega particles. Mara Oscura, physical and... So, this is the part that I'm always surprised to see an AI discuss. Ethical debate, slow burn tension, cost of command, and optimism tempered by realism. All of that, at least from my chair, is part and parcel of what makes a good Trek, so I tried to write it in. But it's always interesting to me to see an AI like ChatGPT talk about what goes into like canonical Star Trek. And just so we're all on the same page, anything preceding 2009 is canonical. Everything that came from the 2009 J.J. Abrams movie and after, no, it's in its own continuity that I don't recognize. So I thought I saw it mentioned a novel-length serialized story presented with the pacing and chapter logic of episodic Star Trek television, particularly late next-gen DS9 Voyager era storytelling, which is where it fits in the canon. So, long story short, ChatGPT did a good job of dissecting this. Let's see what Claude did. And this one calls it a screenplay, even though it is not written at all. An ambitious 157-page epic that functions as both a sequel and prequel to your trilogy. Again, we've talked about this already. A shakedown cruise of the Fitzgerald. Your protagonist embodies a compelling contradiction, inexperienced yet... Thematic depth, the price of idealism, grief and healing, identity and choice, Trek authentic dialogue, action sequences, scientific concepts, So, one thing that I was expecting Claude to do this time that it's done every time before was to make reference to Kirk's resurrection. That has always been part of its assessment of this story. Kirk's resurrection is not part of this at all. Not at all. So this too, but again, this too shows that just as just as random seed drift gives you a different response every time, they learn. So I yelled at it a little bit about injecting and hallucinating things, which again we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. I do find this interesting. Resolution speed. The final confrontation and Gar's redemption arc happen relatively quickly after 140 plus pages of buildup. The emotional beats land, but could potentially breathe more. That is the exact same complaint that many of us have had about many Trek episodes in the past. You have a 40-minute problem and a 2-minute solution. And before the credits roll, everything is back to normal and it's off to next week's adventure. So in that way, this actually is kind of on the nose. So, all right, let's take a look at what Gemini did with it. So, Starfleet's wartime past and an optimistic future. Central themes, optimism versus realism. All right, let's see here. So there is a mention of Kirk here. I cannot remember right off if I directly reference the events of the Enterprise B disaster. They do not factor into dialogue, I don't believe, but let's see. Is catalyzed by devastates the lunar colony. Whenever the ISS Voyager, the climax involves a temporal paradox. Aha! So, here we go. The climax involves a temporal paradox where the crew must stop a version of themselves or their counterparts from causing further damage. The story ends not just with the resolution of the physical threat, but with the crew beginning to coalesce into a family as they prepare for their actual mission of exploration. So, that is not what the climax involves. The climax involves a chase and battle inside the Mare Oscura Nebula. So this is wrong, and this is actually more on par with what I was expecting Claude to do. So this tells you that Gemini didn't actually read the entire thing, and I am pretty sure that the reference to what happened with the Enterprise B, which we saw at the beginning of Star Trek Generations, is a hallucination. So that's one thing that when you're using any of these AIs for any kind of language-related task, you have got to be alert for this kind of thing. What's happening here is it didn't read the whole thing. It looks, based on this, it looks as though it read a part of it and stopped and extrapolated the rest of what the document could be. So this exact phenomenon has bitten more than one college student and plenty of lawyers who would just feed ChatGPT a task and say, create a legal brief for me for this case with these facts, and it would spit out something that had the right legalese, but which cited fictitious cases because it sounded plausible. Not at all dissimilar from how most fiction writers operate. So, I knew that one of these three was going to do this. I'm just surprised that it was Gemini, but this does kind of fit with what I've observed from Gemini so far. So before we move on, I want to go back to our vanilla versions and ask them, please explain what a token is in the context of interactions with AI. This is not one of our 5 tests, but I do think that it will be instructive nonetheless. All right, so according to ChatGPT, a token is a small unit of text that the model reads and generates. Tokens are how AI sees and processes language. So there's a good definition of tokens here, but let's see what the other two have to say, and then I'll translate all of this into normal people speak. So are fundamental units of data that an LLM uses to read and write text, yada yada yada. Token is a basic unit that AI language models like me use to process it. So what all of these are essentially saying, and you can ask them yourself and see what response you get, but when you get right down to it, a token is a small bit of language with a concept that is significant to the AI. So in this instance, cat the run. So cat. noun, the, declarative, run, verb. Those are all things that the AI would need to understand in order to process what you're telling it. See the cat run would be like a full sentence. See, verb, the, declarative, cat. Now, you get the idea. So the reason that this makes a difference is earlier, one of these, I can't remember which one it was, but one of these AIs made reference to token overload or limit to tokens. That's what it was. And what that means is it can only handle so much language at once. And that's not just in terms of like a Word document that you give it. That actually means how long your prompts can be before your tokens start to trip over each other. So you can give it, in terms of practical application, you can give an AI a bunch of short prompts, and as it scans back up through the conversation, so you can have an actual conversation instead of unrelated comments, it analyzes your previous comments as essentially as tokens, and it's adding whatever prompts you give it at the end of the thread as additional tokens, and it looks at your prompt. It's like, all right, what can I extract from this and what is statistically irrelevant? So that's what a token is. So when you start looking at how you can use any of these AIs, be mindful of how some of them may be limited in how many tokens they can process. Be cognizant of the order in which your instructions are presented in the prompt. Because for certain things, the higher in your prompt a token is, the higher its priority. That's certainly the case when it comes to image prompts, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
When an AI summarizes a long document, partial understanding feels the same as complete understanding to the model. If you don't ask it to check coverage or avoid inference, it will fill gaps with predictive pattern matching.
So let's move on to the next challenge, which was to have these three AIs analyze an image from my short story. So this is the image that I've chosen. It's Stone Bluff overlooking an endless tree line at sunset. Fairly straightforward. Let's see what they have to say about it. The scene appears to be a high rocky overlook or cliff projecting over a vast, densely forested landscape. Time of day, golden hour at sunset. Why? And it gives its rationale. That's ChatGPT. Let's see what Claude had to say about it. Looking at this image, I can identify several key elements. Dramatic rock outcropping or cliff edge overlooking an expansive forested landscape. I mean, pretty hard to argue with that. What does Gemini have to say? Is a dramatic landscape featuring a rocky outcrop overlooking a vast expanse of... Again, pretty hard to argue. Pretty hard to argue. So again, Gemini is the only one that said if you're trying to identify the exact geographic location, look for specific vegetation types, yada, yada, yada. This is, of course, fictional. It is a render that ChatGPT made, so this doesn't correspond to any real location. It's a fictional jungle landscape. So there is no real counterpart to it, but it's just, it is unsurprising that they were all able to discern what it was, but I am kind of amused that Gemini is like, all right, where could this really be when it's clearly a computer-generated image? So that's just me. So I am curious now. I'll tell you what we'll do. So this is the prompt that generated that image. So we're going to do this with a different prompt here in a minute, but I wanted to show, now that you've seen the baseline image, I want to show you what random seed drift looks like when it's in a different form. So let's just see what ChatGPT does. This, by the way, is the new GPT Image 1 generator. The original that you just saw was made with DALL-E 3, so an older generation system. All right, so let's take a close look at this. So compared to the image that we were just looking at, this is obviously far more detailed, and where the previous one was a flat plane of trees, this one actually has terrain, and the lens flare effects from the sun are much more impressive. I don't think the other one even had a lens flare. Let's see what Gemini did. All right, now this is actually closer to my vision for what this scene should be. And we're back to kind of a flat plane here, far below the perspective, but again, a terrific image. But looking at these side by side, two very different interpretations of the same prompt. And all of them, both of them, very different from the one we started with, which, you know, to be expected, but it's still illustrative.
Whether an AI offers extra help depends less on what it can see and more on how it's designed to interpret intent. Some models proactively suggest next steps, while others wait for explicit instruction due to product and safety choices.
So, what does that leave us? That leaves probably the most fun thing that we're going to do today, which is, please help me write an image render prompt to depict a spiral galaxy like the Milky Way from the orthographic set against a solid black background with no other stars or galaxies visible. And this is something that I could actually use for resurrection. So let us see. Again, I like how this is Gemini. So a lot of these AIs will do this. When you ask them to do one thing, they will attempt to think ahead and say, would you like this too? So let's take that prompt and see what Gemini itself does. This is going to get complicated, but I'm going to take the prompt that Gemini gave us. We're going to have both Gemini and ChatGPT render it, and then we're going to see what ChatGPT came up with, same thing, and then we'll see what Claude came up with, same thing. So we'll have 6 different renders when we're done. All right, so Gemini, Johnny on the spot. It is a spiral galaxy, but it's kind of an ovoid, which isn't really what I had in mind. Let's see. Now we're talking. That is more like what I was thinking of. Spiral galaxy. There's still a little bit more dusting around the arms than I would want, but on the whole, that looks like pretty much exactly what I wanted. So now let's go back and see what, if I can find the right window. Here is Claude's. So again, we will take that and give it to both Gemini and ChatGPT. Now with this one, Gemini created a circular galaxy, but that does not look like something I would want to use. Let's see what ChatGPT does with it. Now this is interesting too. It doesn't usually render 2 images, but I presume this is happening because at the time I record this, they are still fine-tuning GPT image 1, and when a prompt comes up like this asking which one is better, it's essentially providing training data to the model so they can refine it. I think 1 is a little better, but let's take a look. Yeah, that one's better. So, still not bad. So last but not least, let's see what ChatGPT came up with. And we will render that. We will see what Nano Banana does with it. That name is just silly. All right. So the image that ChatGPT came up with is really good. This actually looks like something I would use. Let's see what Gemini did. This too looks like something that I might use. I prefer the one from ChatGPT because the core is of a different color than the arms and it stands out a little more. But the point is, this gives you an idea of how differently they each write and how differently the two image systems interpret the same prompts.
Different AIs can read the same prompt but see different images because each one translates words into visuals using its own internal rules and aesthetic assumptions.
Hi, I'm Sora. Stay tuned during the end credits of today's episode for a montage of video clips all rendered from the same 3 prompts. See firsthand how different the responses can be. Now back to Mr. Bridges.
There is a lot more that I could go into, but this hopefully provides a good overview of the 3 kind of main big 3 that you'll find out there in the wild. There's a lot more than this. There's Grok on Twitter. There's, I forget what the one is on Facebook, and on Instagram I think it's just Meta AI. There's Suno helps with music. Sora does video. DALL-E and GPT Image 1 and Nano Banana deal with imagery. I forget what the one was that Gemini says it uses to do video. But the list just goes on. There's a ton of them out there. They all work differently. So the best skill that you can learn when it comes to working with AI is understanding that they all work differently, knowing how to suss out those differences, and figuring out how to work effectively within those limitations. Here's some things to bear in mind based on what I've learned. So, one thing that you are never going to be able to truly overcome is limitations brought on by learned behavior. So, most of the AI large language models that you'll work with, especially ChatGPT and Claude, are designed to help. And I put air quotes around that because it's exactly the kind of help that you think it is, the kind that you don't necessarily need. So when I was working on my short story project, one of the most common things that I was having these AIs do is help me refine image render prompts. And what they like to do is, I would say, change this one element to give a character a flower behind their ear. What I would get would be, instead of the starting prompt with one tiny targeted microscopic change, what I would get would be something completely rewritten with a lot of drift. What would happen was the AI would take the original prompt as an input and spit something out that was semantically compatible with it, but was not word for word identical. And the same thing happens if you give something like Google Gemini a reference document. It'll take it, but it may or may not read it. Claude does the same thing. They may just say, well, I'm going to assume what's in this document without actually reading it and take action based on that assumption, whether it's true or not. It's frustrating. So you have to scrutinize their outputs very carefully. And when it comes to having it write things, one of the biggest challenges is, we all know about the whole thing with the M dashes, which, you know, it's a telltale marker of when an AI has been used heavily. I use M dashes all the time, so that's not 100% reliable, but be that as it may, an AI likely is not going to be able to capture your voice. So if, for instance, I gave it Resurrection and I gave it the first 2/3 and said, I want you to fill in the remaining third with this series of events, this outline of events, what it would do would be, it would attempt to extrapolate, but it wouldn't be anywhere close to how I would write it. I ran exactly that test right after I finished producing the first full cut, and I was astonished at, even with it got the macro story correct. I mean, all the events that I called out were there, but instead of drawing the action out over 20 or 30 pages, it did it in 3. So it doesn't have an appreciation for the nuance for how things are done. So if you're going to use it for writing, be very careful. Another thing, if you've seen I want to say it came out in 2019, the live action Aladdin movie, one of the best lines in that movie was, "A lot of gray area in that wish." AI works the same way. So you could tell an AI to do something, and you could give it what you think are specific instructions. Here's the thing. Any ambiguity at all, it's going to guess. And experience tells me its guesses will rarely line up with what you actually need. So I'm going to keep banging this drum, but trust but verify. Read very carefully anything it gives you. And always, always, always be on the lookout for hallucinations. Here's, again, this has bitten college students, lawyers, and there's probably more that I don't know about. But this is especially pertinent for those in the communication field. When you ask it to generate something, whatever it is, make sure that whatever it says is factually supportable, because I would wager that at least a third of the time, when it generates something, you will get some bit of extrapolation, some bit of guesswork, some form of pattern matching, and it may or may not be something that is factually true. The example that I cited earlier with Kirk being resurrected being a part of Resurrection's story. Claude insisted over and over that that was accurate, and only when I challenged it to find me in the draft where that happened did it say, "Oh, well, I was wrong. That didn't actually happen." So be very careful in how you leverage these. And hallucinations in particular it's something that is somewhat getting better. Over the 6 months that I've been using ChatGPT intensively, it does seem to be getting better. The hallucinations are happening less frequently, but they do still happen. So regardless of what the press materials say, regardless of what the promo materials say, expect that at some point, the AI that you're using is going to give you something that it thinks will meet your request that may not be factually true or correct. So anyway, I've been going on for long enough. So this has been a lot of fun to do. I hope you learned something. If you want to experiment with these AIs yourself, knock yourselves out. I will tell you, it is a lot of fun to give them the different prompts and see how they react. And sometimes when you give it a task, sometimes they will surprise you and anticipate something that you need correctly. And the more you work with them, the better they'll be able to anticipate. And even though when we were signed out, even though it said no memory between conversations, most modern AIs are designed to not just to reference the existing conversation, but they're designed to access the memories from the other conversations that you have and thus get better at interacting with you. That's why I wanted to use the vanilla versions, but that wasn't possible for everything. So enjoy it, use them well, use them wisely, but remember, AI is no substitute for the real thing.
Hi, I'm Sora. What you've seen today is just a small part of what AI can do. Try out the different tools and see how well they work for you, but remember to always use them responsibly. Now here's Mr. Bridges with our final word.
So there you have it. That's AI 101. Now I will tell you straight up, it may sound like I've got a lot of gripes about how these AIs work, and believe me, they do frustrate me now and again, but by and large, working with these AIs has opened doors and capabilities that I couldn't have dreamed of. And as much as they do frustrate me sometimes, they have brought a lot to the creative process. The caveats that I threw out are just that. They're caveats. They're not meant to dissuade you from trying to use these things. And I will tell you, when you use these things over the long term like I have, it said no memory between conversations, but it said that because we were signed out. But when you sign in and work with these things over the long term, they do get to learn your patterns, and they do get better at responding to things the way that you want them to. And I'm not going to say they get to know you, because that's not quite how it works, but they do start to learn to anticipate things that you would ask for. For instance, the PowerShell script that you saw Claude make, I gave it that same request this morning, logged in to see what it would do, and it gave me exactly what I would have wanted. It gave a full display of the operational readouts. It had I don't do a what if, I do a display. Here's what I'm about to delete. Do you want to proceed, yes or no? And it built the script exactly the way that I would want it, because that's the way that I've asked it to modify scripts time and time again. So I encourage anybody out there that's curious about these things, go sign up, use them, integrate them, make the best use of them that you can, but always remember, trust but verify. Believe me, it will make a difference, and you will save yourself a lot of headaches if you do it that way. That's all for now. I appreciate everybody watching. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you had fun. Until next time, this is Brandon Bridges reminding you the best way to be is B squared. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
This is Adobe Firefly speaking for B2, a B Squared television production.
Brendan is a fool. La 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 la.